The Assistant is Bernard Malamud's second novel, set in a working-class neighborhood of Brooklyn, New York. It explores the situation of first- and second-generation Americans in the early 1950s as experienced by three main characters and the relationships between them: an aging Jewish refugee from Tsarist Russia who owns and operates a failing small grocery store, a young Italian-American drifter trying to overcome a bad start in life by becoming the grocer's assistant, and the grocer's daughter, who becomes romantically involved with her father's assistant despite parental objections and misgivings of her own. It was adapted into a movie in 1997. Plot: Morris Bober, the 60-year-old proprietor of an old-fashioned grocery store, faces destitution as his customers abandon him in favor of more modernized shops. The situation is aggravated late one night when he's held up at gunpoint in his deserted store by a pair of masked thugs. The gunman beats him, leaving Bober with a debilitating head injury. Just at this time, Frank Alpine makes his appearance, a 25-year-old vagrant from the West Coast raised in an orphanage after his father abandoned him. Leaving an abusive foster home to live as a drifter, he makes his way east in hopes of finding opportunities to turn his life around. Frank begins to haunt Morris' store and offers to work without pay as his assistant, claiming that this will give him experience he can use in a future job search. The grocer, weakened by the assault and trying to recuperate without benefit of medical care, accepts and arranges for him to have room and board with the upstairs tenants, a young Italian-American couple, and provides him some pocket money. Only at this point is it revealed to the reader that Frank was the accomplice to the gunman in the hold-up. Frank works industriously to improve the store's upkeep, and his attentive service wins customers. The resulting increased income is being supplemented by Frank surreptitiously returning, in discreet amounts, his share of the hold-up take. Simultaneously, however, he begins pilfering from the till. He justifies this to himself by claiming it as recompense for his contribution to the store's improved situation, and keeps an account of his petty theft with the intention of eventually returning it all. Morris and his wife Ida, the latter particularly uncomfortable with the Gentile's presence, attribute the improvement to the customers preferring one of their own, and Morris insists on offering Frank more money. During lulls in the workday, the men's conversations touch upon philosophical and personal matters, and Frank privately struggles with his own ethical quandary. While Morris is notably tolerant of others, Ida is worried by the young Italiena's proximity to the couple's 23-year-old daughter, Helen, single and living at home. Helen is courted by the sons of the only other two Jews in the neighborhood, both young men with good financial prospects, but her dreams of a better life include true love. She also aspires to higher education, but has set aside her own plans in order to take a job as a secretary, as her wages are needed to supplement the family's meager income from the store. Helen and Frank begin to notice each other, and a romance develops between them. They share an interest in books and discuss their dreams for the future. The clandestine meetings grow in physical intimacy, yet at Helen's request stop short of intercourse. Just when she realizes she loves Frank and is committed to the relationship, Morris catches his assistant in the act of stealing. He dismisses Frank on the spot, despite the latter's confession and revelation that he was paying it back. When Frank arrives late to a rendezvous in the park initiated by Helen, he finds her being raped and rescues her. Helen is overcome by relief and clings to Frank, declaring her love for him. In his fear that he's bound to lose her when she learns of his thieving and dismissal, Frank forces himself upon her, despite her repeated protests. Disgusted with herself for ever having trusted him despite her initial misgivings, Helen curses Frank and refuses to see him again. Frank obsessively berates himself with remorse and contemplates ways to make things up to her. He apologizes to Helen profusely at every opportunity, smothering her with his need for redemption. Meanwhile, the prospects from the store have remained bleak due to several turns of events, and Morris considers desperate measures. When he is hospitalized after inhaling gas from a radiator he failed to light, Frank comes back to run the store over Ida's protests. Frank resolves to be a good person, stop stealing and somehow win back Helen's love. He takes on a second job at a diner, but when Morris decides to leave his sick bed, he throws Frank out for good, or so he thinks. Morris grows anxious about his life. His wife is miserable, his daughter on her way to spinsterhood, and his poor business no more than a prison. Morris turns down an arsonist's offer to burn his home and store for the insurance money, but then builds a fire himself. As the flames catch on his apron, Morris is saved by Frank. After being saved, Morris sends Frank away again. Then, through tragedy, things begin to look up for the Bobas. A competing grocer on the block falls on hard times, and Boba's store benefits. Then, one night, Ward Minogue breaks into the liquor store owned by Boba's rival, Carp. Minogue smashes liquor bottles. Then he lights a cigarette. A tossed match starts a fire that burns the store and the apartment upstairs to the ground. Minogue dies attempting to escape the fire. Morris is ashamed that he wished for his rival's comeuppance. Even so, Carp, knowing that he will lose his business while it is being rebuilt, offers to buy out the Bobas. For a few brief days, they are happy. It is the last day of March and thick snow is falling. Morris, in a burst of energy, goes out to shovel the sidewalk, despite Ida's many objections. Still weak from the gas incident, he dies 3 days later of double pneumonia. Morris is remembered at his simple service as an honest man and a good Jew. But Frank and Helen are alienated. Frank returns to run the store while Helen and Ida mourn privately. Money from a second job allows Frank to pay rent to Ida but ruins his health. Frank then settles on a plan to clear his debt with Helen. He will give over all his earnings so that Helen can go to college. After several painful and awkward confrontations, Helen reinterprets the night that Frank sexually assaulted her, concluding that she would have given herself to Frank that night had not Ward Minogue attacked her. She softens towards Frank, forgiving him for raping her. As the book closes, Frank is working in the store. He studies Judaism. He gets a circumcision, and after Passover, becomes a Jew. Literary significance and AMP criticism. The novel has been included in Time magazine's all-time 100 novels.